Allison Holley, who is a channel. And we are talking about becoming multidimensional. And part of that is timelines and the sacred spiral, and how the timelines literally are taking on the forms of sacred geometry. We're going to learn more about what this means and how we can work with it to create a beautiful life. Hi, Allison. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Loren. Thank you so much. And I realized I mispronounced your name. I apologize, but it's so good to be back. And this is one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite things to dive into. And your introduction is just so perfect for what we're going into. So thank you.
Well, I love this because many of us have been learning about timelines in the past year and really understanding that as we collapse or close timelines,
Mhm.
things that maybe we were unconscious of creating. And so, some would say we're collapsing timelines, some would say we're closing or deleting timelines, or actually ending the timeline, but starting it new. So we're still here in this present moment,
Yeah.
but there's something about a vibration. Can you talk about what it means to be on a timeline or to create a timeline or to fuel or feed or empower a timeline? What's going on here from your insight that you're receiving as a channel, and how are you receiving it as a channel?
Thank you for that. Also, just as a bit of an introduction, sometimes I'll close my eyes so that I can listen and pause so that I'm not speaking straight from the mind. But I want to share a couple stories that sort of lead into how I came into these understandings and will directly inform those questions that you asked in terms of the way that I've been shown it. So, it kind of started, in my first book, I actually wrote a lot about time, but my current understanding of what time looks like and that sacred geometry and the spiraling actually started about 2 years ago, maybe a little more. And I was in a cacao ceremony and it was beautifully held space. It was actually very powerful. So, those of you who have been in cacao ceremonies, you might know that it's not a very strong plant medicine. It's not psychedelic, but it can be very potent. And so the space was held very potently. And we were guided into a meditation. And in this meditation, I went through a doorway. And when I went through the doorway, what I saw were these big guides, and they were holding these spirals in front of them, almost like cauldrons. And they were presiding over these. And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "That is the timeline." At the time, I was dating someone that I was really feeling this is quite damaging. So I'm ready to be done with this. And they showed me the spiral. They said, "This is the timeline and the contract between the two of you, and you're not done yet. You need to stay in this." And I was so upset in that moment receiving that information that my human kind of took over. I started crying and I came out of the meditation because I was not wanting to do that. Since then, I've really started to understand, and in my channeling, I've been able to go back into witnessing from sort of a visual standpoint, which is really the interpretation of the energy structures that we're moving into, what that looks like. So, in our previous understanding, the more 3D, 4D, dense layers of reality, we have envisioned time as there's a beginning and a middle and an end, and it's a line, and it's what we would call teleological or linear. It's a line. There's a start point and an end point. You hear this all the time, that you can't change the past, but you can direct the future. We're starting to understand that that was just part of the illusion of the denser layers of time. And what we're coming into now is these quantum understandings and beyond, that it's this, and I'm getting chills all over my body, that it's this sacred geometric structure. So the next part that I wanted to share with you is Since I started understanding it this way, I was so surprised, and I would tell, I have students that I've taught channeling. And so in these sessions, I would tell my students, this is actually what timelines look like. They're spirals. And I had somebody come to me and say, it sounds like what you're describing is Indra's net, which I had never heard of. Have you heard of this?
Yes, I have, but I don't know what it looks like.
Oh, I was blown away. I said, "What is this thing?" They sent me a picture. I said, "That is exactly what I've been seeing." And
Wow.
I was so emotional about it because this is actually ancient Hindu Buddhist combination, right? So there's several schools that understand this teaching. And so that, something about me, because I'm a channel and there's so much of my purpose is around just listening. I don't do a lot of research. So I very intentionally don't listen to other channels, even though I feel a resonance with people, because it's so important that I keep the filters out as much as possible, right? And we're all human, but to really receive and be surprised. And so when she brought this to me, I went to the uh whatever it is. I Google searched it and I learned more. And apparently, so Indra is a Hindu god. If I'm saying that, if somebody else knows more about this, please forgive my ignorance, because again, it is intentional. But the image is so beautiful, and essentially it is, the way that I have seen time is sacred geometric structure that's it's multidimensional beyond what my mind can really comprehend. And it's almost like a net, um, that is also how I see our chakra system, because we have chakras even in our energetic field. They're not just in our body, because how could they just be in the body? Our body encompasses our entire energetic structure. So we've got these sort of swirls, just like our chakra points. And in our energetic field, we have chakra points, and they're all swirls. So the creation of all that we can comprehend is just like this. And this is how time has been shown to me, that it's a web, a multidimensional web, and we've got these connection points, which there's no space and time and distance when we're in these outer realms. So this is just the interpretation. It's all here and now. But
Can
we've
I
got
show
these.
an image? Can I
You
show an
what?
can I show
Please show
an
it. It makes
Okay,
me
because
emotional. It's so beautiful.
it's exactly what you're talking about. So here we
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Oh, so beautiful. Now, can you find, there's a Wikipedia image. This is the one that I saw.
Okay.
When you look at the Wikipedia, this gives a clue. This is
Okay.
very true. And actually, oh, I get so excited. I have a
I'm gonna
hard
find
time.
it on Wikipedia here.
Perfect.
Okay.
Because
Uh,
I get so overwhelmed with the beauty. Isn't that the most beautiful thing?
oh
And each of those
yes.
water droplets are contracts, their beings, their entire life purposes. So it is very fractal in that each aspect contains the wholeness, and it contains infinitely more of the same in its own way. And it's so, so, so profound. So this is what I've seen. And let's go back to the spirals. So it forms a spiral formation. This is why it's so multidimensional, because each of these chakra point spirals contain the lesson over and over and over and over again in different incarnations. So our personal life experience is that spiral, and the spiral, we've all felt this, right? Oh, I'm learning the same lesson again, but it's with different people, or it's in a different city, or it's in a different, I feel like a different person. And yet, here's this lesson presenting again. These are the sacred spirals that we have predetermined for ourselves to play within. And so each of these spiral points, they could be contracts with another person. They could be the entirety of our life purpose with then many sacred spirals within it. And all of these are contained within the multidimensionality of all of existence. So even when I look at something like, a lot of people talk about Akashic records, I don't actually use that term because, yes, this is the one. You can see it's worlds within worlds within worlds within worlds. It's so powerful. And so this is something that I see when we look at what what are different lifetimes that I've experienced. It's all simultaneous, and each of these points are also their own unique individual time unfolding experience. So thank you for sharing that, because it, um, this is just so beautiful, and it is what I've seen. And if you can imagine each of those meeting points, the spirals in those meeting points. So if we were to take this just a little bit further and maybe make it more applicable, directly applicable to our lives, then we can sort of see, and let me know if I'm dropping something out here, if I need to fill in information. But each of these meeting points, they're really choice points. And this is where, you gave this beautiful introduction about how much it matters what we're doing, and that we are the creators of our worlds. Each of these meeting points, and of course they're infinite, they are choice points. Now, I learned, again, relationships are such great teachers. And I had another experience where I was shown something, and then in the 3D reality, it didn't actually show up the way that I was shown. And to speak of spirals, I really spiraled in the human sense. I said, I trust my intuition. Why did it show up this way? And my guides showed me that, let's say 6 months previous, I got that information, but then the choices that I made from that moment forward were based in fear, a little bit of fear here, a little bit of fear here. And if any of you have seen a fractal, how it sort of infinitely creates more, or a fractal spiral. I love that you're getting all of these beautiful images. I can feel you finding the images. So these fractal spirals, right? What I was shown in this channeling session is that I had one choice point and I chose a little bit of fear. And then I had another choice point. I chose a little bit of fear until it brought me to this as the undesired end result. That, oh my God, I love it. This is what reality looks like. Thank you for bringing these up. And so what I was shown is each of these choice points are, it's sort of like, the split in the road. We can really simplify it to just, we've got one road and then we veer off. And imagine what happens when you make a choice 6 months previous. It's going to actually send you down this road that isn't actually the desired outcome. And now, if I had chosen love in each of those moments, and of course, I'm going to talk about how we can't actually make wrong choices. That's one of the the beautiful things about all of these examples. But if I had chosen love, and I didn't even know how at that moment, so this is why there's grace and infinite forgiveness. My best choosing brought me down this fear spiral to where I received my end result. But if I had chosen love and then chosen love and then chosen love, the vision would have shown up. Now, what I was shown is you can do it now, because this is the truth of quantum reality. I go into present moment. I don't even need to go backwards, although we can change the past. I go into the present moment where all choices are contained. Everything is in the present moment. And that's where that 0 point is where I can make a conscious choice And in those conscious choices, I choose love and I choose love. And then my life unfolds exactly as I planned it. Because we all planned our lives to be oriented to love. That is our highest timeline. When people refer to our highest timeline, it is love. And so the beautiful thing is, even if we've gone down these fear spirals, there's so much. What I've been shown is even when we make what we call a wrong choice, it actually just brings different colors into the field. It's not right and wrong in these realms. It is actually all perfect, but it might be unpreferred. And so how do we move to the preferred? We then go into the present moment once we've learned, and we gather all of the colors that we have then learned from, and we paint the desired picture through choice by choice by choice. So I went on 1,000 tangents, which is very perfect for what I'm talking about, but I think that that kind of covers a lot of it. And again, I get so excited about this topic. So if I'm skipping things, please let me know. How beautiful is that?
It really helps to illustrate what you're talking about and choice points and how,
Yeah.
wow, how our life really is a fractal. And so it really is a requirement to be immaculately aware, to be very conscious. And so let me ask you, when you were, I guess hindsight's 2020, and when you looked back and realized that you were creating out of fear, and then you could see the result of that, how did you correct it then? What did you do? Because right here in the moment, this correction can help us. And so when, like within a relationship, you wanted it to end, but you were shown that no, you got to stick through. What was that like? And so then how did you navigate that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, how I navigated that was definitely down the unpreferred spiral because I
Uh,
was learning. The reason that I was told you need to stay in it was because that particular relationship was closing out an ancestral pattern that was living in me, that I had agreed to come in and say, these patterns of disempowerment that the feminine aspect of my lineage has gone into again and again and again. I mean, when I was in that relationship, we had a lot of fun, and it's a beautiful person, right? This is a beautiful human. It's not about that person. It's that we were brought together in this very karmic way because one of the contracts that I came into this world to do, as most of us at this time have come in to do, is to end those cycles of disempowerment. And so I had agreed upon that. And I remember even when I was in this relationship thinking, I don't even understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. It was almost like, Revenge of the Body Snatchers or whatever that is. I'm
like
being
you, it
silly,
was just
right?
something, it was just reactions coming up naturally within you, right?
Yes.
And so it's almost at a point where you're like going, wait a minute, this is not me. And that
Yes.
is for everyone to understand how we recognize the ancestral patterns, that they're
Yes.
not us, right? So go ahead, continue. You were sitting here going, wow, this is intense, but it's not
Yeah.
me.
It's not me. And I played it all the way to the end. Because for me to really end that, it did kind of have to end with a big explosion and fire and all of that. Otherwise, we have, Esther Hicks talks so much about contrast, and I love, love, love this. And, she talks about we need the contrast to see what's preferred. The beautiful thing about that is it's because we want to look at it not so that we can keep looking at it, but so that we can say, oh, that's the pain. How can I turn this way? It's just part of our density layer that we're experiencing in, that if we were not unconscious, we would all only choose love because that's the truth of who we are. It would be easy. It would be so great. We would just be like, I'm full of joy. There's nothing real. This is an illusion. Okay, let's all choose love. That's how it would be. And it would be so easy. So, here in this layer of the density where we've all agreed to have at least a little bit of blanking out, we decided, how are we going to, and it's a paradox. How are we going to know which way to go? Oh, let's motivate ourselves through this real discomfort when it's not who we truly are. It's so baffling that that's the way that we're doing it, but it from a higher frequency perspective, it really makes sense. So in this particular relationship, it ended with a big explosion. It was intense. I wanted to end my life at the end of this. And that's about as far from the truth of me as I could get. So I went all the way there and collapsed, as you were talking about, collapsed that timeline. What happens when we collapse that timeline is we've got this swirl, these patterns. We kind of start here and we learn it. Oh God, here I am, and I'm meeting it again, and I'm meeting it again. When we collapse it, it's because we can imagine, just like when we have a little whirlwind in water, how it sort of just whoop, and it dissipates with itself. And we receive all of the teachings of it, but we also, it changes the past. It changes the patterning within our DNA. So, and this is visually, it's a little bit hard to describe that. So I'll just see if anything comes through, but I'll keep moving forward. With the next experience that I had, where I was shown, you chose fear, you chose fear. And really, collectively, something that we are powerfully all collapsing is the spirals of codependence. The way that we're relating is so massively changing because we're stepping into the Garden of Eden. We're stepping into eternal paradise. We can't do that if we are taking our power outside of ourselves and telling somebody else that they're responsible for it. It's not part of, that's part of the denser illusion. We're moving out of the denser illusion. It worked before. We all played the game of disempowerment. It's not working anymore. It's that simple, right? It's just not working. And we're like, ah, this used to work. I used to be able to be in this illusion. It's not working anymore. So we're coming into the realms of unconditional states, unconditional love, unconditional joy. That means that we still meet our beautiful soul aligned agreements with people, with experiences. But now, instead of meeting it and instantly going, you're responsible for my power now, we meet it and we're both in our beautiful harmonious sovereignty, and then we really sing together, right? So these are, and yet I say that and I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful, but what we get to experience is sort of like these breakdown of timelines, these swirls that we're collapsing again and again. Another way to look at these timelines collapsing is, I call it, and this is actually what someone who I was married to, he was the one that informed me of this, that the fourth dimension is collapsing, the whole fourth dimension. Now, what we know of as the fourth dimension is where we start to get our understanding of linear time. It is good and bad. It's the polarization of opposites. So this is also the mirroring, the externalization of our power, where we believe that something else is responsible, that we're not God, and therefore something outside of us is responsible for our happiness, for our safety, on and on. When we tune into the frequency of oneness, we actually become very, very, very capable of being sovereign and individual, and being connected from there, because it's sort of like notes, infinite amount of notes. So the whole fourth dimension is really collapsing. And what that means is the mirrors are getting cleaned up. The externalization of our power is no longer, and as that happens, it's sort of, I use a lot of analogies, but it's like we've been playing ping pong with our power, right? And it's like, that's yours, and then they serve it back, that's yours. But that ping pong, as the mirror closes and as the fourth dimension sort of collapses the way that we have been in it, that ping pong gets shorter and shorter. We put this is out and we receive it back for our learning. It's not for punishment. It's for our understanding. Oh, that's why that was hard for that person, because now that I've received it, I get it. And now I can clean up my mirror and I can be a pure mirror, which is always only reflecting the infinite love and intelligence that we truly are, which again sounds really pretty. It's a lot to do.
And
Yeah.
truly living this. And so we're living our timelines, we're living our choices, we're living our experiences, but we're always here in the present moment. And there's so much to unpack with what you said. I just want to say recently I realized we also have to, when we feed a timeline, I may be jumping here because there's a lot to talk about with the timelines, but when we're creating a timeline or we're feeding a timeline, it's really important to pay attention.
Mm.
Because as you said, instant karma or instant manifestation, when we put
Mhm.
that out there to the universe and we get it, we better have our eyes open and aware that, like if someone comes in, like we say, I need someone to do this for me, I need someone to
Mhm.
help or collaborate with, then if that person comes along, we better recognize it. So many times we'll miss it. So again, this is more of the need of being conscious,
Yes.
really conscious in what we're creating.
Yes.
And so, all right, I'm going to take some questions from
Yes.
our audience. This would be a good time for that. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect.
Um, and one is, I want to say, when we go and learn about timelines, if anyone's triggered or
Mm.
synchronized with this and saying, wow, I was just thinking about timelines, or how do I make a timeline really come into effect for me? How long does it take for a timeline?
Yeah.
There's a lot of patience that's required. And another thing that's required, I believe, and it's not a cop out, it may sound like a cop out, but we need to disengage from the timelines that don't serve us,
Yeah.
that don't that are not part of our physical reality here. Sure, if we read the newspaper, that's a reality of sorts that we're giving our power to, but is that really part of our reality? So I've heard that the best that we can do is disengage from timelines of the collective or thoughts of the collective and really hold our ground in our awareness of love so
Yeah.
that we are really feeding a timeline that we wish to have. So
Mhm.
here is a question coming in based on
Yeah.
that, and
Okay.
I'd love your take on it.
Yes.
How are we able to help ourselves and everybody around us with a terrible war going on in the Middle East? And
Mm.
this is here. So this person is in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So this is in the reality.
Yeah.
Any messages about why this is happening and
Mm.
what is happening in Ukraine here, but in fact around the whole world. So see, again, we can watch and witness, and it can look pretty nasty, but I'm going to cry when I say
Yeah.
this because I can feel the power in it. This is where we as light workers have extreme power.
Yes.
Allison, please share more on this and what we can do.
Yes. Yes. Mm. The first thing I want to say is, and I'm tuning in right now, is thank you for your service. And this is something that, here in the US, we say to military. I'm not bringing that up for that reason. This is the larger calling. Those of you who are right physically in the midst of the feelings of unsafety, the feelings of fear, terror, um, pain. Thank you, because this is no small calling. This is an evolution of your soul, and you are showing up for it. And you are called to be a witness for what is happening, to send the signal for the opposite, what we call the opposite. What you call the opposite is what we call the wholeness, because the what seems to be pain is really a trajectory of trying to fix. when we try and fix, we re-engage with the story or the pattern. The goal for all of us is to be a witness. Witnessing is the observer. That is our God presence. From the place of presence, from 0 point consciousness, we witness and we allow ourselves to zoom out and recognize that this is a choice. Now, people who are in the midst of it are called very strongly to be the witness and to cry out, this is unpreferred. This is hell. This is hell. And what we're really doing when we do that is we're sending the signal to the collective because we are one. We are one. We're sending the signal to the collective. There is an aspect of our collective consciousness that is aligned with fear. And I'm calling out to let you know that there is a misalignment here. The chorus is not in harmony yet. So that is the job for those who are in the midst of it, to be the witness. It's not an easy job. This is true of anything that is very intense in terms of the game of separation. And I apologize for using the word game because it doesn't feel like a game. It feels like hell. So when we are in the middle of it, whether this is abuse, whether this is war, whether this is anything that feels awful, beyond comprehension, remember, you are a strong being who called this in to practice witnessing and crying out, this is unpreferred. Now, the rest of us hear the signal, and just like something unpreferred within the body of the self, we hear something unpreferred in the body of the wholeness of all that is. And we bring our love. We bring our love. Now, the way that this unfolds, I'm going to go ahead and open my eyes. I wanted to really be clear on that. The way that this unfolds in our human perspective is that it's energetic, remember? So we can't use the logical mind to say, this is what we need to do, because that is often, predominantly, re-engaging in the story. It is the fixing. It is the fixing. When we are fixing, we're actually telling the story again and again and again. Time, as humans know it, is stories. It's story pockets. Can we dissolve the story and make it actually mean something from a broader perspective? This is why we zoom out. We become the observer. We need to witness the story in a very different way. Only when we are in pure presence can we actually choose. If we are fixing, we're not in presence. If we are solving a problem, we're not in presence, because from presence, there is no problem. There's only choice. And we're making choices unconsciously by trying to fix things. So the way that these things become resolved does not make sense to the logical mind, because the logical mind is the very thing that got us to fixing and war and disagreement and externalizing our power in all the ways that we've been doing it. And again, even though it feels awful from our perspective, there is never anything wrong in the big picture. And we are changing because this is now where our consciousness is, not because it's bad and we need to cut it off. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, right? We don't need to cut it off. What we do is bring our infinite love to it. And that is going to look different than our logical mind understands. And as we do that, it's going to create the real change of broadening our perspective. And as this picture behind me, I feel resonates with the templates of the Garden of Eden that we are anchoring in through understanding that although nothing has ever been wrong, we also don't need to turn blindness to what is unpreferred. What we do is we observe it and broaden and stream through pure presence our infinite love. And how that looks in the physical, again, we're not going to understand it from the mind. And so it is helpful for us to remember what role each of us individually decided to play? Are we here to be the observer and the ones calling out saying, this is unpreferred family? Show up. Show up with your love. Or are we the ones out here going, la, 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 that's really scary and I don't know how to look at it? Show up with our love. Who are we? What did we agree on? I personally agreed to be someone who's not looking at any of those things in terms of judging them as wrong, because I'm here to literally say, welcome to Eden. Welcome to the Garden of Eden, my loves. And I'm here actively holding these templates going, yeah, this is what I see. This is what I see. We can get out of hell as soon as our consciousness shifts. And again, time is unfolding in the human realm, so it's not going to look the way that our minds understand. And I do deeply apologize from one soul to another. Yeah, any pain that anyone's experiencing. I don't like it. I don't wish that on anyone. And we are resolving it. The breakdown is actually going to be getting stronger and stronger. There is actually going to be more of what looks like chaos, because we are disintegrating the old timelines and the old systems. And this is imperative because it is the fertile soil that feeds the very garden that we're coming into. The breakdown feeds the garden.
Okay, that is such a beautiful perspective. So we must go through that breakdown to show up in love, to remember why we incarnated here. And it's to be the love. And so no matter where we are on the planet, if, you know, for the beautiful soul who asked this question in the Middle East, wow, good on you for showing up in love in that way, showing up with extreme love. And then when we look at the news, this is our role for light workers. If we choose to look at the news without judging it, but seeing that this could be where we could infuse more of our love in all ways, that's real light work. And again, I want to just say, holding our space in love, like you said, Allison, from your beautiful guides, when we witness it from that presence, from the 0 point, and show up in love, we're doing wonders. And it's not just a cop out. It is what is required at this moment. So really being astute in our awareness of where we're being pulled into fear. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. We're talking again about the ancestral patterns, and it really is interesting because I just wanted to share that you know, if we're talking timelines and we're talking about ancestral patterns, but we have to let them play out so that we can come to the conclusion of that pattern and say, wow, something like I witnessed myself going through something like that over the weekend, and it was just really bizarre. It was like, wow, this is just so not me. And I've come up with a funny take on it. When I was a teenager, a lot of what I'm doing right now is clearing a timeline of my wounded teenager, the little rebellious teenager. Still, there's a lot there. I can't believe how much there is to do with that. But I just realized that it's I came up with the phrase, as teenagers, we would have a phrase, do these jeans make my butt look big? And that's a joke.
Oh, I
And
get it. The
you
pun.
do these genes, but now these genes, GENES, our physical genes, our DNA. Yes, these genes make your butt look big. So
Please make a bumper sticker or some sort of, I need a poster of this.
I know I've been talking about it for a while. I sat with my husband and we laughed because in reality it was like, wow. But for me, and so I laugh at it and I'm like, yeah, these jeans are making your butt look big. So that's my take on it. When I realized, I can go back and I could say, wow, this is totally ancestral. This is my genes. This is my genetics that are making me feel this way. So in relation to a timeline, what do we do? The timeline is, again, being very present and loving it free, just being loving it free. And I would say that the awareness that we have of it is 95% of the work. And then to make
Mhm.
the phrase, yeah, these jeans make your butt look big.
You know what I've been experiencing a lot of, because my human form, one of my big sort of like, I don't know if I want to call it a wound, something that I am continuously visiting within myself is perfectionism. So when I do something, even if I am in this place of absolute love and then it bumps up against someone else and it hurts them, I feel awful. And and it's like this whole game that I play, right, around perfectionism. What I have come to witness is that this lives in a lot of people who are highly conscious, highly sensitive,
Mhm.
which is so beautiful because we're recognizing that we are each other, right? So, oh, I hurt you. And all of this is an illusion, right? So, none of it, we're all doing fine. But what I've noticed collectively is that right now, self forgiveness or just forgiveness in general is a big theme. And all forgiveness is self forgiveness. When we really tune into alignment with oneness consciousness, any forgiveness that we're doing is forgiveness on the self. The Ho'oponopono prayer has been massively helpful for me
Yes.
because and this is something that, is often misunderstood. Well, why would I ask that person's forgiveness? They actually abused me.
Right.
Here's why. Because we're one. And
Yes.
how and everybody's it's nuanced with every experience, right? What actually occurred, and I put actually in quotation marks because everything is interpretation. It's wild. And that's not to disregard anyone's experience, but it is a story. Everything is a story. Can we collapse that story? So when I go into forgiveness, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. It then that ping pong game that I'm playing in my head of who's to blame and who's got my power and on and on and on. It always goes to me. And when I fully forgive myself, everyone around me is also absolutely forgiven because there's no such thing as a need to forgive. Everybody's perfect, It's powerful, it's hard to explain, and I fully recommend it to everybody.
Yes, yes, I love it as well. And I've been weaving those words physically in relationships,
Yep.
strangers to neighbors to people that there's conflicts with, to people who are destroying the environment in my neighborhood. I
Mm.
say, I'm so sorry, perdóname. It has to be in Spanish because I'm in a Spanish
Right.
country. Perdóname, lo siento mucho. Gracias, thank you. I'm so sorry, but there's so much dust from this, right?
Yeah.
Just I mean, those words are so elevating that they're actually dissolving all of it because of this oneness that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
as we apply this to timelines, that is a beautiful tool for timelines,
Yeah.
being really present in what we want to create.
Yeah.
So we can do it to ourselves, we can do it to the people that we are interacting with, but it's really important because that presence, it is alchemy, it is true alchemy to
Yeah.
bring us into the presence, to get us out of blame or shame or anger with anyone or anything, because it does come back home to us, like you said. So
Yes.
um, here we go. Here's a question. Misty has a question. Actually, there's two parts to Misty's question. I'm going to read her part two. So we are at the end of a cycle with someone,
Mm.
facing the unknown. How can a timeline help? Actually, what we want to do is create a new timeline here, right? Can you
Mm.
speak to that?
Mm. Well, one thing is, I'm listening. It's far more helpful when I listen than tell you what I already know in quotes. Mm. You're coming to the end of a relationship. It's just like everything else. In each moment, choose love. So when we talk about timelines and even spirals, we can get sort of attached to what that visual is. And we can get the attachment builds this sort of, it's got to look one way, right? And am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? That very question re-engages the denser frequencies, right? And not calling anybody out at all. It's just that's how it works. So from my own experience with ending relationships is forgive myself for being messy, because we experience our experiences in this life as very real. It's real. So we can't always go through everything like, wow, okay, I'm floating on a cloud and I'm just going to close this relationship out and it's going to be full of love. That might be our ideal, and we might be able to do it sometimes, but we might not always. So we have this process of allowing the pain to actually be the soil that transmutes our experience. Again, sometimes we need to have those moments of intense other, like, I don't want to call it separation from love because everything is love, but separation from the fullness of ourselves, which would be acting out in pain, hurting other people, all of these things. Sometimes those happen because the timeline is living through us. And so, okay, let it unfold. It's sort of like just let it unfurl, and as much as possible be the witness while still being very, very in the experience. Being the witness is not leaving, it is being embodied while seeing it and having that broader vision open up to us. And that is a lot to experience when we're going through something that's activating our pain bodies. So do your best, forgive yourself, go through the process, don't rush it. Rushing things has a tendency to make them last longer. It's one of those paradoxes of time, right? We try and rush it, we try and be perfect, the opposite happens. So if we just surrender to the process and do our best, then this kind of draws in another thing, is the idea that we can do something wrong. That feels very real in this reality, but it is not real. It's a web, and it's a quantum web, right? So in quantum reality, we can draw the model that this is here and this is here, but all we have to do to bring it into the same space and time is pure presence. To think of it, we think of something and it is literally here and now in those quantum realms. So if we are pushing ourselves forward and we are telling ourselves that we're wrong, then what we're doing is we are externalizing ourselves from the present moment. And we do this a lot, right? We try and rush the process, or we beat ourselves up for what we have done. And what that does is it causes the re-looping, and the illusion of separation continues. So to really collapse timelines, there's also implicit in that knowing that we can't make a mistake. The moment that I attune myself to love, I am in the highest timeline. It's not something that's going to take me 7 years. The embodiment of it continuously might take me 7 years. As I learn to let go of those pain bodies and the stories that reloop, that's okay. That's where the self-forgiveness comes in. But it is not, it's not something that's ever far away. That's why enlightenment can happen in a moment. That's why we have these terms, grace. It was an act of grace. Well, actually, that was pure presence. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know if it directly answered it, but I feel the feeling of it was there.
And again, it shows the power of fueling the timeline, being present. And that's where, that's where it gets tricky. In my understanding, when you hear collapse that timeline, it's over, it's done. And yet, as we move through these situations and these timelines, they're never really, they don't, I mean, I guess they can collapse. I guess we can, but in my experience, they're never really done. Instead, we're morphing those timelines
Yeah.
into from the presence of our love, being present, and not going too far in the future, but having a vision of the future of what we wish. So that's creating an optimal timeline where all parties win
Yeah.
in a given situation, all parties win. And what I realized in my own life over the past, I guess, 2 years going through something was that in certain situations, because I wanted the timeline shift or the collapse of a timeline, I was forgetting about love. I literally forgot
Yeah.
about love, and something knocked me on the head and said, you forgot love to all parties in all ways, everywhere. And
Yeah.
so that's really important, as you said, and our love is the generator of the timeline. Our
Mm,
vision of what we want to bring in, our desires, fueled by love,
yeah.
is what sets a beautiful timeline up. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Well, here's the second part of Misty's question. Oh,
Okay.
Misty has her hand raised, so we're going to get to you in a moment, Misty. She says, I have a timeline out of 8, and it is wonderful. But when the dates come along, it doesn't happen. Why? And I think I'm going to, well, Misty, her hand's no longer raised. Okay.
Oh,
Go.
okay.
Why doesn't it happen?
Well, there are many reasons for this. One is because when we go into those higher realms, we are interpreting it in a very linear way. So we might even in the higher realms get this is going to take 3 months. And then we say, oh, boom, here's the linear. This is going to take 3 months, right? But it's actually all more psychedelic than that. And so we're doing our best to interpret the frequency of what we're being delivered into the physical, and then we get attached to it. And that attachment is actually what shifts and moves the timelines. Our attachment to something lengthens it. So this is again my beautiful friend and roommate. She's so earth uh wise, which I'm a star seed, so I've been learning a lot from her. And she says everything here is a paradox, right? So when we go for perfection, we're actually moving away from the truth that we are perfect and love, and it actually brings us farther from the embodiment of love. When we attach to a specific date, it moves it farther away from us. And man, what a weird riddle that we signed up for. Here on the earth planes, it really works. It operates as a riddle. And this is, coming from a starseed perspective where I'm like, okay, what are the rules here? Because I don't understand, right? So I've been studying this from that place of, okay, why does it work this way? It's all a paradox. It's a riddle, right? And we hold the key to that riddle. The other reason is that it could be that you met choice points that brought you to something else. Now, that doesn't mean that you chose fear. What if the timeline that you chose was more loving than what you received? And you could have been told you're going to get into this relationship in 3 months, but then you chose love, 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 love. And it actually said this no longer applies to you. It's not a punishment process. It is an alignment, a frequency alignment process. So there are many reasons why we could maybe not meet the specificity, but it's knowing that everything's always perfect and that from the energetic perspective, we will absolutely always get everything that we signed up for. It just is going to look a little different sometimes.
Important to remember, this is energetics. This is all about the energetics, our vibration. Yes. And wow. Okay. Beautiful. Misty sends hearts our way.
Hi, I love it.
I hope that was helpful, Misty. So hang in there, sister. Hang in there. And, again, as it's a vibration, we reach for the vibration of it already being here. And
Yes.
I can actually see a timeline that I'm working on, that I'm creating, and I'm actually seeing it come about. And I'm not putting a timeline on it, but I'm actually seeing people around me, the players are changing and shift.
Yes,
The players shift,
it's wild.
and it's got to all be in love. It's all got to be in love. But I'm witnessing that, and I just smile. I sit back and smile and hold the vibration, and don't forget love. Don't forget it's the choice point of love.
Yep, yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Misty, I'm going to allow you to talk now. You can unmute yourself and share a comment if you would like, since we were answering your questions. So your hand is raised. If you want to unmute, you can. Maybe you did it by mistake. So you can, I'm going to lower your hand right now, but if you would like to unmute yourself, you can still unmute yourself, Misty. We'll see, and you can, all right. Okay. Randy, our beautiful friend Randy has his hand raised. Now we'll go to Randy. Randy, share with us your comment, please. Hello. All
It's
right.
always so fun working with.
Well, that's fine. We're going to lower Randy's hand, but Randy, you can unmute yourself as well if you ever want to talk. There you are. You're unmuted. Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Hello.
Wow. This has gotten so deep so fast where we can actually shift some of the M fields and make changes in serving humanity. I appreciate the depth of where you're coming from. I understand your languaging.
Thank you for hearing me and resonating that right back.
Thanks, Randy.
Mm.
Thank you. All right. Cool. Anything else, Randy?
Well, uh, I'm 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 still here. I'm doing my thing. It, if I
Yes,
wasn't meant to be here, it's obvious I'm meant to be here. I'm doing my.
absolutely. And
I,
we won't go into your story too much. It's a personal thing, but you are, I hope that someday you share your story with the world because I'm going to cry when I say this. You are a saint. You are a saint. And
takes one to know what.
you are the epitome of showing up in love in all ways. Randy, you really are. You show up in love in all ways. And
Uh,
so
I'll
beautiful.
share this. The
Okay.
the Trinfinity is one of my latest things to share. If you look up Trinfinity and the images, you can find a crop circle. To me, that means pay attention. Like the heart Taurus shows up that way, and the Karana shows up that way. So what I'm doing with the Trinfinity is tracing it with a three-finger mudra with gold thread, and I'm bringing together two M fields, like the prayer of St. Francis. How would you bring together the two together? That's one of the ways I've been using that, and you might like it if you try it. Thanks for this
I really
opportunity. Peace be with you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Beautiful. Adding to the depth of our conversation. I love it. Okay. We're going to go back to Misty. Misty,
Hello,
hi.
hello. Hi.
Hi.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, goody, goody. I feel extremely blessed to be in your presence, Lauren and Allison. Thank you so much, and thank you for answering the questions as well. On the last question, you got me really surprised here because I thought that when we went in meditation in the theta state, that we were in the quantum field, that there was no linear time, but you say there's linear time when we go visit our timelines. Because I did a lot of work with Dr. Goldberg and I had a lot of timelines and I took the one that fitted me best. And I'm at this point right now that it's actually my first day of being independent in 52 years. It's my first day. Totally 100% independent. It's my first day. And I asked the quantum field to bring me whatever help they wanted today. And you popped up in my email. And I feel so
great.
blessed. And I work a lot with the timelines and other modalities, but I thought that once you're in meditation, and especially when you're all the way down to the theta state, and we work on our timelines, I thought that as you look as an observer, that you're not in linear time, but you say we are, and I'm surprised. So how can we not go into linear?
Okay, I think there might just be because we're not in linear time. So let me see if I can explain this. We're multidimensional. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure specifically what I said that's being referred to, but definitely what I meant. Yeah, big congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Definitely, definitely what was meant is that we are multidimensional beings. And so we can engage with the layer of our multidimensionality that does not have linear time when we are in that quantum state, when we're in the theta state. When we are living our human existence, we still unfold sort of a cause and effect process that we tend to look at as linear time. But, you know, kind of the broader truth is that linear time doesn't really exist other than as a concept. So I'm not quite sure what was being referred to, but that's what I mean. Does
Okay.
that help?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good.
Thank you, dear.
Absolutely.
Congratulations on the timeline of your choice, Misty.
Thank you, love. Thank you.
See?
The liberation.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it.
Mm.
Love it. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
That is a beautiful reminder or an example of how we create our timelines and move through them through love. So hold steady with your timelines. Feed the timelines. Disengage from other timelines that don't feel right. This is our discernment. And really, Allison, you said it, it's our choice between love or fear. And
Yeah.
do not feed the fear. Um, it's really interesting where I can see choices that I make that are still out of fear. And let's just play a game and witness what happens when we do everything out of love. Just give that little challenge to ourselves. Everything out of love in all ways. The rest of this day, make choices from love and see what happens there. It is beautiful. It's miraculous, actually. Okay. Here's another question.
Okay.
Can you speak about bleed through from other timelines into our dreams? Is this actually a thing? How do we know if it's a bleed through from another timeline? What does it mean? And what can or should we do with what we see in those dreams?
Such a
Interesting.
great question.
Mhm.
I'm like, this is fun. Okay. Beautiful question. So the really fun thing is that, and I'm going to explain it again. I'm going to explain it in really linear way, but it's really so much more fluid than this. But we have different dimensions that we exist in. And I compare these to Russian nesting dolls because it's sort of like the 3D is in the innermost Russian nesting doll, and then we go out to 4D and we go out to 5D. And as we expand into these realms, the other ones still exist, but our consciousness is able to exist and comprehend within these outer frequencies, right? So, but we still play the game of each one. Each layer of this multidimensional scope that we exist in, which is all of it, but our consciousness is predominantly within one or the other. Meaning, are we predominantly in the 3D version of consciousness reality, or are we predominantly expanded and it includes, we know how to play the game in these other realms? So that being said, when we go into dream time, we actually lose the density of the physical layer and our consciousness expands out and tends to be in more of the fourth dimension. And again, fourth dimension, we can say we're collapsing it, but really the purified frequency of the fourth dimension will always exist because all of these dimensions exist, right? And they're all perfect. So when we go into that fourth dimensional, the dream time, when we go into the dream time, we also witness time in that playing field, right? So we've got the 3D chess field, you know, like we're playing chess over here, and then we're playing chess on this one, and the rules of each one are a little bit different, right? So the rules that apply to the fourth dimension, they're different. So time is different. The way that we perceive time within dream time is different. What that means is that you could access a whole bunch of information that when you're walking around in 3D isn't as accessible. So it opens up the field to things that are outside of the realms of time as we understand it from this more dense perspective. So we're going to be accessing past lives, we're going to be accessing knowledge from other, realms and other understandings. Each time you receive information, the way that that realm works is it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot more instant too. So I won't go too much into that. That being said, a lot of times we will receive information in our dreams that very much applies to our waking life, and it informs the process of our spiritual journey. Other times, our dreams are really just us processing a lot that was unresolved, either in this lifetime and past lifetimes. Either way, it's sort of the same in that we choose from love what we want to do with it in this physical reality. So I'm not sure if that fully answered it, but that's kind of my synopsized version of the understanding, and hopefully that helps.
Thank you for that question, and thank you for that beautiful answer. Yes, the dream space is wild, and keep a dream journal perhaps and pay attention there. I know,
Yeah.
it's really weird. Dreams are really wild and help us see how we create our reality. Anyway, it's a whole different topic. So explore it.
Yes.
Love it. Okay. Here's another question. Last question.
Okay.
Deborah. Hi, Deborah. Deborah says, I have been called upon in this lifetime to clear a massive amount of dark energy from myself, my child, and a large chunk of the world population. I've been working on it for years, and I'm so weary. Is there a way to speed up the timeline and cross the finish line of the marathon?
I'm going to listen specifically. All of these questions, they're all broad, and they're all very specific. So let me hear what needs to come through for this one. When we have made certain agreements in this lifetime, again, you know yourself very well. And there is still the process of learning to interpret differently. It's sort of like when we shine a light into water and then it shifts the way that the light looks, right? We put a stick in water and it looks like the stick bends. That's our interpretation process of these very higher frequency understandings as we bring it into this playing field. So know that you know your process and you know what you signed up for. And there's a little bit of something where you could view the work that you're here to do a little bit differently. That's going to bring some relief, is what I'm hearing. Meaning that you're doing what you're meant to do, but if you could frame it a bit differently, it will not be as heavy for you. So that was a very specific message. A lot of times the answers have been more broad for the collective, but that's a specific message for you, that there is some relief when you are able to view this more broadly. And it has to do with the way that it looks from the human perspective. that can be shifted a little bit. And, this is a hard one to say, but I'll go ahead and say it, that our perception of suffering from the human perspective is skewed. It is skewed. And so when we are cleaning up things and we're doing all of that transmutation work, it was never for any of us meant to be awful. It just wasn't. And so though you know your assignment, there is a way for you to do this that can be much, much lighter and connect with your guides. I'm not making any assumptions about whether you do or don't, right? So just know that there is relief possible by seeing this differently and still doing what you came here to do. And I hope that that helps.
Thank you, Deborah. We hope that that helps you. Tremendous work that you're doing as a light worker too. All right. I love that message.
Mm-hmm.
And it's indicative of how you bring forward messages specific for people and helpful. This is really beneficial for our journey. And the way that you channel is connecting into the beings from higher realms that are here to assist. The messages are always so pure. And that's what makes you a wonderful guide for those who need some extra assistance. So personal sessions with you are wonderful. And you have a personal session available. Can you share with us what goes on, what people can ask, what questions they can bring? What's it like when a person does a session with you?
Yeah. Oh, I would love to. And thank you for that. It is one of my biggest joys. I mean, I love channeling. And because, I really get that we are all powerful gods and creators. And here we are in this like body that we're trying to figure out. And we came with these big missions and then, well, wait, what am I doing and how am I doing this? Right? I understand that so deeply. And so to have the opportunity to provide guidance for any of that is something that I really, really enjoy. So in these sessions, they are sessions where they're live over a video call, and you are welcome to ask literally anything you want, anything that's curious for you. We can open it up as many questions as we can cover during our allotted time. And we'll dive in from that higher frequency perspective to give a new lens, sort of like what we were just talking about. Give it a new lens. What's a new way of looking at this with a bit more information from a higher frequency perspective to open up some breathing room so that we can start to progress in our own journey with a little bit of guidance, like the eagle view or the spaceship view, I should call it. Sometimes we need the spaceship view of what we're experiencing.
That view is often a pressure valve, a release valve,
Yeah.
so that we can breathe a little easier, as you said, and see that perspective from love, from the realms of the illumined ones that are here to support us, that you bring through in your channeling. So supportive. I bet that people ask about their mission and relationships. Are those the two most, like,
Yeah.
what is my purpose? What am I here to do? And what about these relationships? Are those the most popular questions that you receive?
Yes.
Mhm.
Let's see if I can broaden it just a bit, because yeah, I think that those are the questions that we experience as humans.
Yeah.
Those are the strongest questions. Um, so where am I from in terms of, being a starseed, where else have I lived? That's a question that I get a lot. And
Wow.
again, it is far more than just you're Pleiadian, right? It is, oh, yesterday I channeled for a friend that she has existed inside the sun, also Arcturus, also, and I was like, you've been all over the place, and here's what your mission is here. And it's massive. There's so much in existence, right? So we can tap into some of that. Also, yes, life purpose and how can I serve that? relationships, health stories,
Mhm.
because actually our health stories, well, I would say all the time, inform our life purpose. We build in these interesting experiences in our bodies to guide us along our predetermined life journey. It's very fascinating. So we do a lot of that. I would say those are the big ones. Yeah.
Yes. And really important if people have personal questions about timelines. Of course, that is a beautiful way that you can assist through channeled messages to assist people in creating the best timeline on their spiral of time. And
Mm,
so beautiful. So we invite everyone to check out Allison's special offer. The link is in the Zoom chat. It's on the YouTube chat. It's wherever you're watching and listening to this video. A link is in the description box and it's on this webpage. Just scroll down and learn more about getting a session with Allison. They are recorded and available to listen to again. When you go back into the frequency of the message, oftentimes you will hear more. You will get more insight. Once it's like removing a layer, then you go and listen to it again, and the next phase of that information will elevate the awareness even further and give
yeah.
new insight. So it's really magical how that happens. All right, Allison, thank you so
Lori, can I
much for
add one
this.
more thing?
Yes, please do.
Can I add one thing? I
Yes.
want to add a bonus, and I know that this is extra work for you,
No,
but those
please.
of you who, it's actually maybe not even extra work for you. I'll just do it on my end. Those
Okay.
of you who sign up for a channeling session through New Earth One Network, I'll add in a bonus that is a Learn to Channel mini course. So you can actually learn. It's an hour-long class that I taught, and I would love to extend that to anyone here, because a huge part of what I want to do is instill trust in yourself for receiving all of this as well. So you'll get the channeling session with me, and I'll add on that bonus. Okay. And I'll do it all on my end, but
Oh,
I'll send you the information.
yes, we'll put it up on this webpage as well. That is so precious because, as we connect more to our hearts and connect to our higher self, you know, um, we never forget the sound of our higher self. I do hypnosis sessions for people, and
Mm,
you never forget the sound of your higher self voice. That was why I was guided to the Ho'oponopono again and again through my higher
yeah,
self. And at first I was
yeah,
like, hey, why am I saying I'm sorry? That person hurt me. But it really does.
right.
And my higher self. And so when we learn how to do this, it opens us up. As we're talking about being multidimensional, this is what we can expect. We can access information like this, like you said, with those nesting dolls and the other dimensions around it. We're just moving into those dimensions for the information, like you close your eyes, that allows you to connect in because it's a feeling sensation. And I envision the world where everyone knows how to do this. So what a gift right there to allow us to learn more. And everyone's going to have their own counsels coming forward. They're already with us. We're just not aware of it. So
Yeah.
tune in, everyone, and share the info. You are listening to this, you're watching this. You are an incredible New Earth leader. And this is probably what you're here to do, and a beautiful way that you can step up and assist our planet. No matter where you are or the circumstances, you will be this huge beacon of light when you do that. Allison, thank you for supporting all the beacons of light out there. Shine more brightly. When we say goodbye, I would love you to maybe send us a message or share a message or anything that you get right now in this moment.
Yeah, I'd love to actually offer a light language transmission, if that's okay.
Beautiful.
Okay, that's what feels like it's coming through. And I also just want to let people know light language is allowing a specific frequency to come through me. And it's not word for word, it is a transmission of, it's like a frequency tune up. It might sound very weird to your ears. That actually helps get the brain out of the way. So it might also look weird. If it's weird, take what feels good and leave whatever else. Ritika shunyo mokota hyoto moko ura anama katstinama ako uuri anamataka romanayata hu shonamoko ola yanamo tukuru ashtianamaya infinite love and gratitude for the game that I get to play with all of you. Thank you for being part of this with me and me with you. I love you infinitely.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I loved that light language transmission. Parts of it spoke directly to my heart. Yes. Thank you. We hope everyone is feeling the vibrations of love within your heart so that you can go and radiate more of your love and your light to our beautiful planet. We thank you for being here. If Allison can help you on your journey, she is willing and able and so happy to do so. Please check it out. And again, remember your love and your light and the timeline that you are creating. And we send you our deep love in deep gratitude. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren. Bye.
Namaste. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in Unity Consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.